Brian Seth Hurst is the CEO of the Opportunity Management Company, which is a strategic consultancy driving the next generation of entertainment. Brian is referred to as the
father of cross-platform.
That means multiple platform usage. Thank you. And he's also an author and has just written a book called Whole, which is available on
Kindle as of today. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's with a W. W-H-O-L-E.
So, and the big reason that Brian has so many great people that he brings on these panels together is because he really works with broadcast clients and content right holders and technology and distribution companies, helping them work together and building communities and really moving our industry forward. So it gives me great pleasure and pride to introduce
Brian Seth Hurst.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Seth Hurst.
Thanks, Seth and Lori. It's great to have Seth and Lori in my corner, and they're amazing people and amazing friends. So I'm going to take the first 10 minutes before I introduce the men who need no introduction to kind of frame our conversation. It's our contention at our company that there is an ongoing conversation between the storyteller and the audience. And story worlds, in order to work with the audience, a story world has to be really well defined. So I'm just going to ask one question. How many of you are familiar with the prime directive of Star Trek? And how many of you would consider yourself Trekkies? Not as many as are familiar with the prime directive. So the prime directive actually set the story world. So I'm going to go through the conversations really quickly, and we've actually named these conversations. And then I'm going to show you a couple of videos, and then John, Dan, and here's the interesting thing about John, Dan, and Tim. Amazing storytellers, master storytellers. The audience is familiar with their content, but each one of these men has a relationship with their audience, and that is the future, where the storyteller is in conversation with the audience. So what's the first level of conversation? The first level we call, here's the story. Ever since the printing press, it's just, I deliver the story, the only way, it's one way, the only way I know if I'm a success and I've reached you is if, number one, the number of books I've sold, number two, the tickets at the box office, or three, the ratings. So that's the pretty standard thing that's been around since the invention of the printing press. The second, and John doesn't even know I call this, but the second level is called I'm listening, and we call this the John Chu model. And I'm listening is when the storyteller is actually in conversation with the audience. And John will start to talk about that, about what happened with Never Say Never with Bieber, LXD, and then G.I. Joe 2. So the second level is I'm listening. And the thing about John, and I don't want to steal John's thunder, is that John said to me, and all three of these men, by the way, we interviewed for a study on the future of storytelling. John said, listen, if the audience is going down the hallway, I want to open the door for them. I want to lead them. So the audience has influence with John as a storyteller, but he doesn't give away his responsibility as a storyteller and for maintaining the integrity of the story world that he's created. The third level down is my world and welcome to it. And we call this the Tim Kring model. And this is where heroes, the Emmy Award-winning, interactive Emmy Award-winning heroes, set the bar. So I want to start with that video to show about the audience and their relationship with the content.
The whole idea of a television show used to be this idea of a one-way street, where we would create the content and push it one way to the audience. Now, with a show like Heroes, there are multiple ways to find it. NBC.com's there, Facebook page,
comics, webisodes,
a Twitter account, iTunes and Hulu, the fan worlds,
flash games, the graphic novels,
Easter eggs hidden in Ninth Wonders.
There are all of these really cool satellites that you can check out. It can go up and it can go down and it can go sideways.
It's really where TV is going.
Every so often these trappings can be quite fruitful.
People seem to be on their phones a lot. People seem to be in their email boxes a lot. We've decided to embrace that in a real way and tell story where they are.
The Heroes fans didn't need any prompting at all. Anytime we introduced something new, immediately they would pick up on it and run with it.
Anything that allows them to feel as if they're part of the show, they're all about.
You have an audience that's going online looking at all this extra information about your characters.
Obviously, no show can show every angle of what's happening over the course of the story, but the new media gives us a chance to really fill in the blanks there.
As an executive producer, it's really just been a paradigm shift in my head at the way I look at storytelling. We have a new media department that is based here in our production offices, and that department really has to be a liaison between the writer's room and the directors on the show to the .com division of NBC, where there are 50 or 60 people that are working on our content that's online.
NBC.com handles all the IT, and then we'll have our writer and the show's writers will work together, and they'll come up with the creative content.
It's really the audience knowing that what they are receiving out there is actually coming from the creative forces of the show.
One of the best things I think about interactive or new media is that it's easily measurable.
We can actually listen to fans, what they like and what they don't like.
You get responses so quickly. Write a comic, a month later, the artwork and everything's done and it's online, and you're getting fan reactions to it.
Those things really help us push to what we want to do.
A graphic novel, for example, we can see exactly how many people downloaded, we can see how many people viewed it, and that's what caused us, instead of doing one a month, we went up to once a week because they were loving it.
I think our graphic novels fit so perfectly with the concept of the show.
We bring in designers and illustrators, and it's really an interesting blend, and those worlds come together.
The writers, they're really growing in the way that they're using the comics. They first started using them to tell in-between stories, and then they started telling ongoing parallel narratives.
The classic example in the 4th season is when Ali Larder went to do a movie and missed several episodes filming with us, but her character sort of continued on in a storyline on the graphic novels until she comes back at the end of the season.
What we thought we would do was kind of explain where she went.
Something I'm gonna ask of you, Tracy.
At the same time, we were going to introduce a character by the name of Eli. We wanted to explain where he came from. So it was a good way for Tracy and Eli to clash. Howie Kaplan came into the fold at this time, and I thought he'd be really good to help me write this.
I was like, yes, I'll give that a shot. Sure, well, I've only read 17 gazillion comics in my life. I'll try writing one. It was a 3-parter. Foz wrote the first 2 issues, I wrote the 3rd issue.
We just really wanted to show her using her powers in as many ways as possible.
I got to write stuff for the artist to draw, like Tracy flies through the air and shoots these spikes, embedding them in thousands of Elis, and hundreds more come out and mob her.
She throws ice darts, she stabs some guy through the chest.
Tidal Wave kills 70 or 80 Elis, so we had to write these like epic fight scenes that would just be too hard to shoot in real life. So she sent Eli off to the carnival, and then in the next episode of Heroes, there's Eli. So the multiplier character was actually introduced in the comics before he was introduced in the series itself.
The graphic novel is a huge undertaking. Our episodes air Monday night. On Tuesday morning, we launch our graphic novel.
The whole process would take probably about a month.
Basically, you're writing out, what the panels are going to look like, what the character's going to say, but you're kind of directing it too. You're like, close-up of this character, side shot of that character. Send it to the art house, and then you get layouts back where they've drawn. You start to see the sketches of what you describe.
With someone like Jason, we luck out.
He created so many amazing stories.
Roadkill, Some Quad Some, Death of Hannah Goodleman, the Vietnam series, Into the Wild, Root and Branch, I've done a lot of them. The first thing I do is I'll have a read through it. Then I'll sit down and I'll start doing some layouts and make sure that the storytelling is key. I think it's really important for fans to be able to take off where the show finished and start the graphic novel with that touch point that looks identical to where they left off on the show. The audience for the Heroes graphic novels are people that watch TV. Their frame is always wider than it is taller, so I try and keep the same aspect ratio as I draw my panels. Being a fan of the show, I really try and study people's body language. Like Mohinder Suresh's totally different body language to Sila, and if I drew them the same way, people, I would be undermining both those characters. So it's really important for me to really get into their headspace and then hand it off to the guys to see what they think.
His style looks more like a painting.
With his partner Annette Kwok, who does the colors, they've just done some of the best work I've seen.
I see just how passionate everybody is about it, how professional everybody is, and I wouldn't be doing them justice if I didn't do the same myself.
The end of this season will be at about 180, and it only happens because the fans are so into it.
Web series, it's a huge team.
We would start from scratch with writers, with directors, with a full crew, casting, using the character, and blow out their storyline.
Slow Burn dealt with the carnival and the tattooed lady, Lydia.
We went through the casting process and they found a brilliant actress to play Amanda.
This is incredible.
We knew we had a star on our hands, and she started showing up on the actual Heroes episodes.
The show would have a little act break.
Is this the night that Joseph gets murdered?
I don't know, but it is very dangerous to be here.
We go right to a scene.
And now, Slow Burn. She's family, isn't she?
And after the little 30-second segment, it says, for more, go to NBC.com/heroes. And you'd go to it, and then you watch the next minute.
It is dangerous here. I am trying to protect you.
When you're watching the show, you go, oh man, that scene plays with a lot more subtext.
You can see just by the looks those two women give each other that there's some kind of conflict. And if you wanted to really know what the story was on that, you could check it out online.
Episodes 1 through 4 we had cuts of. So we'd say, all right, well, I know where this pod's going to go, so this is what it's going to be about. But then we kept going, and we were like, we haven't seen a script for 9 or 10 yet. And so we had to sit with the writers and say, is it possible for us to get her in this episode? Can you just give us a thumbs up? And they actually really kind of worked with us. It was a really cool, fun, kind of challenging thing to do.
People love this character of Eric Doyle, the puppet master.
We brought him into the new media world. They created this 4 little episode arc for him.
I like your skin. I'm a puppeteer.
Like you make dolls talk?
And then this season we got the opportunity of saying we have this carnival. Wouldn't it be great if he gets pulled back in, which we told through some graphic novels.
I did Starting Over, and it fills in how Doyle ended up at the Sullivan Brothers Carnival.
So we had this really cool 3-tier story.
Content online isn't just video.
We have a survival game where fans can actually create their own characters.
At every episode on the air, they answered questions online, and that's what they had to do to keep this particular homegrown hero alive.
We also have the iStory. It is basically a create your own adventure that fans can follow.
This year with the carnival, we actually created some online casual flash games. All of a sudden, those took off. We started embedding clues.
End of season 3, Twitter kind of exploded.
There are a lot of superfans on Twitter, and they take it to a whole new level. There's people on there who will tweet in character as their favorite character, and they'll have on their Twitter account, I tweet as Elle Bishop prior to her being killed by this guy or shot by that guy.
These are all people who just follow the show.
There's one guy who's, I guess, the best styler. If you can get interactions with him, it reflects well on you. You're the Elle Bishop who's talking to the best styler. But we kind of really tapped into that in a cool way this year by running a Twitter account for the Sullivan Brothers Carnival, which I run. So I tweet in character as the carnival. For a while I didn't believe that I was really from the show, so we started sending pictures that clearly no fan could get, so they knew that I was legit.
We started hiding things and asking questions and doing trivia and giving out prizes, and people responded to it really well.
We keep asking who's really behind this Twitter, so I guess this is me coming out the closet as that. If anybody's watching the interviews, I'm the guy.
If you need to know anything about Heroes, it's on Heroes Wiki.
Totally. Everyone on the show uses that.
You looked something up just today. We needed to double check Claire's phone number.
I mean, the second that the episode airs, the website is updated.
What happened to this character in iStory? Is this gonna violate that thing?
No.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure we've said it in dialogue.
I don't remember.
It's a lot of balls ideas. We use the fans to help us out.
I really do believe that we're at the beginning of something really new and exciting, and Heroes has been really kind of at the forefront.
Honestly, this show is one of the coolest experiences to work on that you could ask for, especially for somebody just getting their start in the business at an interesting time when TV is no longer just TV anymore.
Tim is so good at what he does, and the fact that we get to play like this is just such a great experience.
What we have created is this kind of entire ecosystem of story.
And that's where television is going, dimensionalizing beyond just the single screen experience.
There's this brave new world, and that's the really exciting part about where we're entering.
So, yes. So the thing about that level is you'll notice
The story world in Heroes was so well defined, and it is my hope, Tim Kring, that this becomes a Harvard University course and a case study for what happens when you build a story world with the audience. And we'll be talking to John, about LXD and how the role that the audience played in that. So we had 3 levels so far, right? We had here's the story, I'm listening, my world and welcome to it. The 4th level down, we call that take it, it's yours. And I call this the Eric Kripke model. Any Supernatural fans in the audience? You don't know what you're missing. Okay, so with Supernatural, maybe you won't get this, but maybe you will. The fans know the world so well. Who's familiar with fan fiction? Slash fiction? Okay, you'll need to know this. So slash fiction is when you put 2 members of the same sex in the show. For example, in Star Trek, it would be Kirk and Spock in a romantic same-sex relationship. However, fan fiction is getting really good outside of slash fiction, and some of those writers are really, really good. So Eric Kripke knew this, tipped his hands. And by the way, the fans created canon. Canon is the official laws of the universe that you create in a story world. Eric Kripke's fans created new canon. He saw that happen. He took a piece of that canon and made it officially part of the Supernatural canon. And now that is called pulling a Kripke. So it's actually a real thing. So I want to show you the episode where Eric Kripke, just a snippet, where Eric Kripke tipped his hat to the fans.
We're gonna need all the copies of Supernatural you got.
Can I help you?
Sure hope so. Agents DeYoung and Shaw. Just need to ask you a few questions.
Was anything strange in the building last couple of days?
Like what?
Some other tenants reported flickering lights.
I don't think so. Why?
What about noises? Any skittering in the walls, kind of like rats?
And the FBI is investigating a rodent problem?
What about cold spots? Feel any sudden drops in temperature?
I knew it! You guys are LARPing, aren't you?
Excuse me?
You're fans.
Fans of what?
What is LARPing?
Like you don't know. Live-action role-playing. And pretty hardcore, too.
Sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You're asking questions like the building's haunted. Like those guys from the books. What are they called? Supernatural. 2 guys use fake IDs with rock aliases, hunt down ghosts, demons, vampires. What are their names? Steve and Dirk? Sal and Dane?
Sam and Dean?
That's it.
You're saying this is a book?
Books. It was a series. Didn't sell a lot of copies, though. Kind of had more of an underground cult following. Let's see. Yeah. That's the first one, I think.
This is freaking insane. How's this guy know all this stuff?
You got me.
Everything is in here. I mean everything. From the racist truck to me having sex. I'm full frontal in here, dude. How come we haven't heard of him before?
They're pretty obscure. I mean, almost zero circulation. Started in 05. Publisher put out a couple dozen before going bankrupt. And the last one, No Rest for the Wicked, ends with you going to hell.
I reiterate, freaking insane. Oh, check it out. There's actually fans. There's not many of them, but still. Did you read this?
Yep.
Although for fans, they sure do complain a lot. Listen to this. Simpatico says the demon storyline is trite, cliched, and overall craptastic. Yeah, well, screw you, Simpatico. We lived it.
Yeah, we'll keep on reading. Gets better.
There's Sam girls and Dean girls, and what's a slash fan?
As in Sam/Dean. Together.
Like, together?
Yeah.
They do know we're brothers, right?
Doesn't seem to matter.
Oh, come on. That's just sick.
You know, they never really got the attention they deserved. All anybody wants to read anymore is that romance crap. You know, Dr. Sexy MD. Please.
Right. Well, we're hoping that our article can shine a light on an underappreciated series.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, if we got a little bit of good press, then maybe we could start publishing again.
No, God, no. I mean, why would you want to do that? You know, it's such a complete series. What with Dean going to hell and all.
Oh my God, that was one of my favorite ones because Dean was so strong and sad and brave, and Sam. I mean, the best parts are when they cry. You know, like in Heart, when Sam had to kill Madison, the first woman since Jessica he really loved. And in Home, when Dean had to call John and ask him for help. Gosh. If only real men were so open and in touch with their feelings.
Real men?
I mean, no offense. How often do you cry like that?
All right, now I'm crying on the inside.
Is that supposed to be funny?
Lady, this whole thing is funny.
How do I know you two are legit?
Oh, trust me, we're legit.
Well, I don't want any smart-ass article making fun of my boys.
No, never. We are actually big fans.
You've read the books?
Cover to cover.
What's the year and model of the car?
It's a 1967 Chevy Impala.
What's May 2nd?
That's Sam's birthday.
January 24th, Dean's.
Sam score on the LSAT?
174.
Dean's favorite song?
It's a tie. Between Zepp's Ramblin' On and Travelin' Riverside Blues.
Okay. What do you want to know?
What's Carver Edlund's real name?
Oh, no. Sorry, I can't.
We just want to talk to him. You know, get the supernatural story in his own words.
He's very private. It's like Salinger.
Please. Like I said, we are, big fans.
Awesome. You know what? I got one too.
Wow. You are a fan.
Wow. Okay.
And speaking of fans, whose fans number in the million, master storytellers who tell us who we are, who we can be, who make us laugh and show us the possibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Chu, Dan Harmon, and Tim Kring. I think your name tags are someplace, but I don't know where. It's a good thing I'm not like a true fanboy. I would have fainted right now.
It's good to be the only guy up here without a world named after me.
Oh, you think, do you? So, gentlemen.
Yeah, you didn't get to worlds 3, 4, and...
No, well, right now I only see those 4 levels of conversation, but, you know, I leave it to you guys to define the next world. I kind of want to... Oh, boy.
You kind of want to watch a whole episode of Supernatural? Because you almost just did.
Yes, been there, done that.
And I think I speak for everyone here as a storyteller connecting with his audience. It was kind of a bummer.
Sorry, Dan.
Got a little tense at the halfway point.
Woo! Well, if only she had taken off all her clothes, then it would have been worth the wait. So let's start with you, Dan. I just want to know, when you guys think of the audience, because, you know, sometimes they say, don't write what you know, don't write for the audience, but now the audience, I mean, they're your friends, they're your enemies, they hold you accountable. You guys are audience managers now. It's a scary thought. Your audience came to your defense. We're going to show that video in a minute. Your audience came to your defense when your run was ended on Community. When you think of the audience, tell me how you define your relationship with the audience.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like anything much new. It's just that the technology kind of changes what you see. Certainly, I think the most interesting thing is fan fiction / fiction you brought up, because the interesting thing about that is the connection between audience members that it represents. And I don't know to what extent our relationship with them is changing. Like, you could look the Joss Whedon relationship with his fans pre-existed what we now call this modern landscape. I mean, I would be over at a girlfriend's place and she'd have 7 books that were based on Buffy, including yearbooks from Sunnydale or
girlfriend's
whatever.
no longer in your life?
Yeah, well, they're Joss Whedon fans. I had to let them go.
Yeah, that would have been my red flag.
That idea of well, this guy creates all the things that I like, so I'm into him on a level, like I'm interested in him. Like we've had that in the music industry forever, and now that TV has fragmented into as many tiny chunks as the music industry has, it has followed suit. So really nothing has changed that much. We'll talk for a long time about what has changed, the relationship between the creator and the audience, but it's very little compared to the importance of what changed between the audience members themselves. Because obviously what we used to have was a one-way passive transmission of these giant towers just beaming things to people who had to go to the water cooler on Monday morning to find out whether or not somebody watched whatever they watched and to share their thoughts and feelings about it. And if they had, for example, sexual feelings or fantasies about the characters, they had absolutely no way of knowing that anybody else felt that way. So the relationship between the audience and the things they watch on TV, for better or for worse, is deepening. But more importantly, they are now kind of realizing that they're not alone. They're able to get together and go, now there's a thing called slash fiction. There's a thing called shipping, which is the more benign form of slash. It just means that I ship him and her. I want her, him and her to be together. And they have labels and things. They have a standardized
alternate
language.
universe, taking characters and plunking them down in another world that you didn't create. But they take those characters and put them there.
Yeah. So this world that's going on in spite of the changing conversation. This is my world. Welcome to it. Here's my hat. You can put it on my coffee table. The 4 levels that you're describing. The whole time there's this thrumming hive where their little hexagonal honeycombs are just getting more and more, homogenous. The audience is becoming a thing that we can no longer claim to be in charge of.
That's a great point, because Tim, you've actually there are 65 million fans around the world, Heroes fans. You and I had this discussion about how the negative fans seem to speak more loudly than the positive fans do at times.
Yeah.
And when you look at the Heroes audience, and now even the Touch audience, the audience for Conspiracy for Good, you're constantly, your motivation is to inspire.
Yeah,
so how do you maintain that conversation?
Well, one of the things that helps with everything that we're talking about here is that our jobs primarily are about the content that predates the audience's involvement. In other words, the brush fires that I have to put out on any given day are often, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, 3 months even ahead of when the audience is going to experience it. And so it keeps that just enough distance that they don't have tremendous amount of input on what your day-to-day life is all about. It really becomes about managing their expectations of what's coming down the road, and you end up using them. I find that the audience ends up becoming very much a kind of mirror to the exact experience that we have while making a show. They very much mirror the writer's room in terms of where the arcs and the ebbs and flows of the writer's room's, passions or interests in a story, just as we're starting to get kind of bored with something and want to go one direction. Sure enough, 2 months later when the audience is seeing it, you can feel and hear their reaction that they're mirroring exactly where we were in the writer's room. So that distance between you and the audience, by virtue of a traditional model, for television at least, maintains that buffer that you have. But then obviously on top of that, once the show is out there into the world and people are reacting, and if you are doing what we did on Heroes with the tremendous amount of content that was being pushed, then you're able to sort of experiment and almost like a beta testing ground with all that stuff. You're able to, it's not quite as important to the canon because you're not spending $3.5 million on the show. You're spending a lot less on the the smaller content. So you're able to take some bigger leaps, and you're able to sort of get an immediate feedback loop. And by the way, it was very interesting watching this because it sort of felt to me, and I'm curious about what you might know, Dan, about what's happening in networks right now. I'm on a show.
Kind of out of the loop.
I'm feeling I'm out of the loop too. I'm on a show. I'm in the middle of making a show that isn't doing a lot of this stuff, and so it was both really fascinating and nostalgic and kind of curious to see. It almost felt like a lost civilization. Like you find pyramids, and they had figured out, invented the zero, invented all these amazing things, and yet where it is now, a few years later, has not seemed to have progressed very far, and in terms of that relationship with the audience. And I think a lot of it has to do with a rare moment in time with Heroes when a big company like GE and NBC wanted desperately to be in the digital space, and that met with a show that had lots of ideas. And so there was a very open feeling, a very kind of wild, wild west.
But if you talk to some of the independent production companies now, actually what you did was kind of establish best practices. And now it's a matter of who's paying for it, and that's what slowed it down.
What's interesting about watching this, all the stuff that we did, was that there wasn't a lot of pressure at the time to monetize this stuff, and it allowed us a kind of purity and freedom and creative,
But now they are figuring out. We're sitting right in the middle of it, so they are figuring out the business models. Tim talked about a buffer, John. There is no buffer with you. I just watched what happened on Facebook this week with you. So the Nicki Minaj, Justin Bieber video came out. That was on Facebook. Your Microsoft Surface commercial, which we're also going to show, that just came out with the LXD cast. And you had talked about the conversation that went on between you and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and the audience during the making of G.I. Joe 2. Fans that already had been with G.I. Joe and really knew it well. And were they holding your feet to the fire? And what were those conversations like?
It was. It's been fun, when you jump around doing different projects, especially ones that are such different genres. But to have, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, to have direct access to the people who've been following your career, and to people who are followers of other fan bases that are coming, that you're joining essentially, and you have to sort of be anointed into that world. So, joining Justin Bieber's camp when I did his movie, nobody knew who I was. I didn't know their audience. So Justin, we had to make a video where Justin, literally the first day I ever met Justin, we shot this thing in his van where he sort of introduced me to his audience. From there, I think I had like 10,000 followers. About 24 hours later, I had like 200,000 followers. But because he said, this guy's okay, he's in our group, they embraced me, and that was a really great thing. At the same time, the dancers that I'd been doing, because I did the Step Up movies, they were like, what? Why are you doing a Justin Bieber thing? You're not a 14-year-old girl. What is this? All these hip-hop guys, they were offended. So I had to sort of like, through Twitter, through Facebook, actually tell that story. Like, this is a digital age. This kid has this really interesting story. We're going to tell this story for this generation. It was that sort of thing where it was storytelling outside the storytelling. When I went from Never Say Never to G.I. Joe, that was a whole nother storm that I had to get through, and it was really, with the Rock's brand is like tough and like no Justin Bieber, no dancing, none of this stuff. So I got hammered by all the Joe fans, and so I had to sort of show what I knew about Joe, and also what Rock did was really smart, and he's really good at this too. Is in the storytelling, between the storytelling, was basically annoy me. And I one day on set we had Pinkberry. We were shooting in the desert, and we had Pinkberry delivered to the desert. And so I was eating my Pinkberry in the middle of this hot desert, and he comes up behind me and like puts his arm, they take a picture, and he's giving me the dirtiest look as I'm eating Pinkberry. And immediately after he wrote that, and he wrote something, I don't remember, something like, why is our director eating pinkberry on the set of G.I. Joe or whatever. They sort of annoyed, it gave us a fun little thing to play off each other through the shoot, which was really fun because now the Joe fans got to be involved in that. The hard part now is, I just did Justin Bieber's music video, and that was a whole nother... Switching back
with Nicki Minaj.
That was crazy, and that story actually is really interesting because we actually used, when you talk about the audience, the relationship, we actually used that relationship where they're creating things and tried to make them tell the story. So what we did was we had Justin. We shot this. It was all sort of found footage style music video, and so Justin last Thursday, I don't know if you saw this in the news, but he tweeted like, sometimes you can't trust people. And the next tweet was like, I got a box stolen of personal footage that I had in my bus. And then we created a fake Twitter account, and we cut all these little like found footage things of Justin almost doing nefarious things or whatever, at a party, at a thing, and right when he's going to say a swear word, we like cut out. And then this Twitter account starts threatening Justin, and Justin, has 28 million followers, and all his fans are like getting involved, like, this is so horrible, how could you do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like getting involved, my friends are calling me like, why you never get emotional on Twitter, why are you, saying this guy's a bad guy. Anyway, on Friday, he's like, I'm gonna, at 12, whatever, I'm gonna show the party video that you don't want anyone to see, and we released it, and it's this crazy music video, found footage music video, and it broke the record for Vivo in a day. I think it had 10.6 million hits in 24 hours. I think right now it has 28 million hits. But that was like for a song that wasn't going to be a single. Literally, we just did it, and we let them tell the story. We let the press, everybody picked it up in the press, which was really fun, and it was sort of letting them tell that story.
You had told me that when you went back to do the director's cut, if you will, of Never Say Never, you took a lot into consideration of what you knew the fans wanted from what they had told you on Twitter. So when you talk about the fans being able to kind of affect the storytelling in television, you have this long lead of production, but both you gentlemen are about to be liberated from the chains that bind you in television, as I know. So
thank you.
So is this something intuitive that you have to know? Because you did it with Conspiracy for Good. Is this something intuitive you have to know? Where to draw the line? Where you lose? Because in that participation continuum, you will lose control.
Yeah. I mean,
I want to know if I'm curious what the record, what the label and what his management and all that. How behind that strategy?
Yeah, did they make you hashtag like _ Sony Records, like all that? Because whenever I would do Twitter sods and things with community, I had to do it like sort of in defiance of a machine that would say, well, we're doing this Twitter sod. Well, I would have a laptop open at a table read, and I'd be tweeting as all the characters while we were reading a script for the next episode, because if I didn't do that, then this machine would take over where we'd go, there'd be a tweet like you're supposed to immerse the audience, but then at the end of the tweet it would say NBC.com Doritos Extreme Flavor HTTP you're an idiot and a prole, go fuck yourself.com. It shattered the illusion. I'm curious if when you guys did that kind of fun thing where Justin was doing a faux, was there any of that business?
I mean, they were freaked out for sure, because you never know.
He might just say, "Burn down the White House."
Yes, exactly.
28 million of you.
And
I'm so glad you're not an anarchist.
And Justin's been through that kind of stuff with Twitter, where they've told people to go outside even if they don't have tickets, and all of a sudden thousands of people show up, and people, the city's gotten angry and all that stuff. So they're kind of aware of that. And what's interesting about Justin's camp, and I expected a lot of that stuff, so I wasn't quite sure if it was ever going to work. But what's interesting about Justin's camp is Scooter, his manager, and Justin are the decision makers. Especially right now, he's right in that time where he can pretty much do what he wants with them. So
Scooter's in charge.
So Scooter's in charge. We were able to
more people than Kissinger was. Scooter's in control.
So we were able to do it. I mean, and we did it fairly quickly because we shot the video about 2 weeks ago, and so literally it happened so fast. I think they didn't quite know how it would play out. So
that's the way. I mean, that's how everything cool has been getting done these days. Like the powers that be are a little dizzy.
Yes.
You know, to
So
the
get away
extent
with it
that they're
now.
able to try to
So
catch up
when
when
you
they
look
start
at
talking
this,
about monetizing and we got a Bacardi ad in the corner, and if you wait a second, the gravity of the previous industry just sucks everything down to suckiness. Because the internet is completely different from television. I don't know if I'm the first person to point that out. It operates completely differently, and it has an enormous appeal for that reason. And for advertising, we have thought for 60 years, we've got this momentum going, where the idea of the way you make money in entertainment is you force people to watch a commercial for a product that they wouldn't watch if they had any choice. But we forget that at the roots of it, Jack Benny'd be in the middle of a sketch and he'd go, "That's hilarious, Rochester. By the way, this mop is amazing." And they owned it. Colgate presents the Colgate Comedy Hour. We forgot our roots because we got fat. We were high on the hog with TV. 30-second spots, and you gotta watch them. And Cosby Show gets 30 million people watching it, so this is how much a 30-second spot costs. So now we're on the internet, and it's like, okay, we need a revenue turnstile to slow down your proprietary player, and people in Canada can't watch your video because the people in North America are the only people that are paying for it. So you do the Facebook thing, but the Bacardi people won't pay for it, and blah, blah, blah. It's all the old world mentality making everything about the internet suck. The thing about the internet that people like is that it's not monetized, and it's like Deadwood, you know? It's like swear engines looking out the window at the telephone poles going up. It's going to be over pretty soon. George Hurst is coming to town.
Who's George? I just want to know how you really feel. No, actually.
I want to know what happened at the end of that Supernatural marathon. Did Daphne get together with that guy's not even on the panel, and you did 20 minutes on his show?
I was illustrating a point, Dan. I'm sorry. So
I think he thought you were Eric.
You know, when I invited Dan to the panel, because I've been in meetings with Dan, and I invited Dan to the panel, and I thought, this is going to be either my dream or my nightmare, and I still don't know which it is. Dan, with all these tools, so you're talking about, what I want to talk about is there a new, because look, you've all labored under, John, the whole reason LXD came about was because you were signed to do Bye Bye Birdie and it didn't happen and you wanted to do something independently and you were frustrated. Tim, the whole reason Conspiracy for Good came about was because you wanted to do something outside of network channels and had a message. And the whole reason Channel 101, correct me if I'm wrong, happened was because you wanted free internet. You wanted people to be able to create, and you wanted the cream of the crop to rise to the top.
Right.
Are we entering, is it possible that there is this, I don't want to use the word revolution, Dan, because I don't want you to go get your gun. Is it possible that we're entering a new golden age for storytellers? Because you all didn't get to keep your rights before. And you had said to me, we had talked and you said, look, I could tell them what to do for DVD, for community. I could tell them what I want them to do on the internet, but I don't have those rights, and it goes to the marketing department. I don't get to do that stuff. Mm-hmm. If it were my world, I would do it this way.
Right.
Now, every brand, that's why Conspiracy for Good happened, because Nokia was looking for a storyteller.
Right.
And even though, and forgive me advertising people in the room, even though every agency has tried to start a content division, they still don't know how to tell something beyond 30 or 60 seconds.
That's right.
And they have to give the storytellers autonomy. Is the scale changing? Are we coming into it because of the democratization of media and the presence of master storytellers? Are we at the birth of a new era for storytellers that will be based on their relationship with the audience, because the audience won't put up with crap either. They want the authenticity.
Yes, I think so, and I think the reason is that because the elephant in the room is that the reason it's 30-second spots being played to you is because, you remember in Kurt Vonnegut, the Tralfamadorians or whatever they were called, they were fourth dimensional creatures, and we experience life as, oh, my friend died, oh, my niece was born, and we experience it one moment at a time, but there were these fourth dimensional creatures Vonnegut created that looked at all of time as a landscape. You have to think of the internet as being that different from television. People don't are never going to have to watch a 30-second ad for Colgate ever again, but there's even better news for Colgate. Colgate doesn't have to go through Madison Avenue anymore to create a 30-second ad that they need to watch.
right.
Colgate can take a tenth of the money they've been spending on Cosby Show ads and put it into creating a comedy portal that is back to Jack Benny, back to Uncle Milty. It's just Colgate.com. It's just their branding is going to be more all over the audience's brain than it ever has been before.
Well, even and Tim, if you could speak to this, even brand as character, because when Nokia came in to Conspiracy for Good, they actually participated in the writer's room, and as did Room to Read.
Yeah.
So brand as character, that's one way, is we're bringing you the best in comedy and entertainment, and we're bringing you all these channels, but both in Conspiracy for Good and in LXD, there's examples of the brand being essentially a part of the story.
And you know, now that brands have such a direct relationship to their customer, you know, they'd call them customers, I'd call them an audience. And they can be made or broken by, you know, some tiny little misstep that then blows up in social media and destroys an entire brand. And since that relationship is so direct now, it's also mirroring this idea or opening up this river of the ability to push content directly to those people by disintermediating the usual
Agency.
traditional, yes, not only the agencies, but the traditional ad buyers of the networks. And
Dan brought up a very good point, which is, you know, you can go the traditional route and spend $30 million on a web series and still not have the agency really understand that you don't put a web series on a microsite. You reach out to the audience in a far different way.
And
and
there's
social
surplus of
distribution
content.
and-
And by the way, not to get on that horse, but that's the economy in general is suffering from, you know, a 30-year momentum of us not understanding that you have to create a surplus. You can't just take. You have to make stuff for free sometimes. You just have to have faith that if capitalism is right, is communism going to take back over if we saw? We already know that capitalism is working. The thing about it that works is that like people that make computer programs that people want to use and TV shows that people want to watch, the big dirty secret is we do it for free, man. We love doing it.
Well, you look at the Smosh guys. They did it out of love, and now they're like a money machine. And the other thing is, just going back to what
it always starts with that. Some punk rock guy in the basement bar, you know, he becomes bigger than the Stones
Wayne's
because
World.
he loves, you know, he loves making music, and then he starts to hate it when he gets a swimming pool.
In What Would Google Do, in Jarvis's What Would Google Do, he talks about growth before revenue.
Right.
And I think it's our responsibility as creators and storytellers to pick, if we do need that support and we do need a brand, what brand actually fits with what we're doing, and we had to spend just as much time integrating it and being as creative integrating it than we are.
Can you talk about that with LXD?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was being able to say no to certain things when we knew it was going to ruin what we were telling, and then other things, we had this great relationship with Puma when nobody believed that they wanted to put money into a superhero dance series, which makes absolutely no sense. That Puma said, "Yeah, we'll do it. It sounds interesting. It's the best of the b-boys and the hip hop dancers, and how we can be a part of that world." So we used we incorporated a whole episode where there are these magical shoes, and they helped design this magical shoe for us, where one of our characters, Harry Shum from Glee, whenever he put on these shoes, he turned into an amazing dancer. When he didn't have it, he was a horrible dancer. So, and that's such we had that freedom because we were brand new and we could create these characters at will. But even with the Bieber music video, in order to get the funds to be able to do that, we knew we were doing a party, so we had Olympus come in, and we shot with these Olympus tough cameras and threw it in the water, and they're synchronized swimmers in the water, and
that's really cool.
Exactly, and that just literally saying no to 10 other brands that came in, and then deciding, okay, Just Dance can come in because it's a party, but we're not going to sit there for 15 seconds straight and have them dance to Just Dance, which is what they wanted.
Game,
yes, which is what they wanted. So it was just like, how do we make it organic into it? And it was just literally.
But they gave you, and Tim, this is your famous story about Sprint being integrated into Heroes for $30 million, and the show not seeing a dollar of that.
Right.
But what does it take for brands to trust the storyteller, and is that a trend that we can think is coming?
You know, I do feel like it is a missing piece in their, you know, in their quiver right now is the storyteller, and it's a unique time because of that. And what's interesting about what you were saying about integration, there is also, I think, a new trend, hopefully, that I see that is a byproduct of this idea of authenticity and that audience having such a strong connection to a brand in an emotional way. And I think especially with the millennial generation that kind of understands that somebody has to, they inherently understand that somebody has to pay for this content. And so,
they don't resent it.
And they don't resent it, exactly. Right. And so the point is, if you are a brand that can bring to them something cool that they fall in love with, that they go out and tell their friends about, then the halo effect, without putting your brand all over the place, without having to sort of shill for your own.
The interesting thing about Conspiracy for Good is, other than the video that we did to enter an awards con, you never saw a Nokia ad anywhere.
Exactly, and the idea that a brand can get that halo effect by being responsible for bringing something that people love or connected to. And they get that, the idea is, and it's worked with me on the few things that I really feel, I'm sure I'm subliminally advertised to all the time and don't get it, but the ones that the few times when I've really connected to something is when I've had some sort of an emotional sense that brand shares my particular values about the world. They get me.
And the same thing that would make
humor if it's a comedy.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly,
it's like, oh, they thought that
exactly.
was a funny joke.
So
it's the same thing as Subway sandwich.
It's the same thing that makes you watch Community. You identify with something in it. You feel an emotional. I just want to ask the audience a quick question.
The point is that when you go into the store, or when you go to buy a car, or when you go to buy a cell phone or whatever, I think the idea is that you may have a warm, glowing feeling in your heart for that company and not even understand why.
And all these companies now, like Toshiba, they're all creating content. I just want to ask you a question. I want to see how many hands go up given this topic. How many of you think that Red Bull is a soft drink company? How many of you think that Red Bull is a media company? How many of you haven't thought about Red Bull at all? But the interesting thing about Red Bull is they're doing exactly what you're talking about, which is they're bringing, like, okay, so not everybody's going to jump from 23 miles, you know.
How many people think Red Bull's an energy drink? Say, okay, that's
there you go. Actually, you're right.
It's a little confusing. I got hung up on the soft drink thing, too.
Who had a Red Bull before this panel?
That's just vodka. That's nature's Red Bull.
So, gentlemen, when you look at the tools that are at your disposal now, and I'm not just talking about alternate distribution, the internet, cell phones, I'm talking about the technologies that enable you to create things. John, LXD was done on a 5D camera, correct?
No.
No?
We shot on Red.
On Red.
Mm-hmm. Although we do coverage in 5D. But we were around before 5Ds were around, too. Go ahead.
But the same thing you shot on Red, too, for the web series in Heroes, did you not?
Yeah.
So the idea that the cost of production can come down and the technology makes your job, I mean, you can literally edit on this. Mm-hmm. How will that affect storytelling for you in the future? So if you're not going to go be television, if your agents aren't holding you prisoner to go make you deals with the networks, and you're going to go off and you're going to do these new things, people must be presenting you with new technologies every week. Use this, do this. How do you vet that? How do you...
the wheels turn much more slowly in network TV than anyone would like to think. I mean, you use what you used yesterday because it hasn't stopped working yet. You know, and the only thing that does, but it's a glacier. It's powerful. It moves slowly. You can't turn it, as compared to a motorcycle where it's like you're not affecting as much. You're not making lakes and rivers, but you can do whatever you want. We use Avids. We use whatever cameras they tell us to use.
But I mean, if you're looking at the next generation of content that you would create independently, the next franchise.
I mean, what's interesting is that it's more than just the. It's more than just the technology. The technology is unbelievable. The ability to now shoot. I mean, we are shooting with new digital cameras that are literally require they almost manufacture light. They're incredible. And that idea, when I first used to walk onto a set, when I first started in television, it was always hot on the set, and you always had that kind of heat when you walked into the sound stage. Now you never associate that kind of thing because we're using a desk lamp to light an entire scene. It's really kind of amazing. So the technology is incredible, but it is the whole system that's in place in Hollywood, which I support to a great extent because I am.
Because you're protected by it.
And I'm protected by it, and I'm a union guy, and all of that. But at the same time, I still, to this day, don't know what the 75 guys who are standing around in shorts really do on a set, and I don't. I've spent hundreds of thousands of hours on the set, and I could not tell you what most of these guys do.
It really is difficult, because as a writer, you go, man, I'm getting totally reamed by the producers, and as a producer, you go, what do you mean I can't have this guy say more than 3 lines to tell my story? And it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm part of a union that protects me, because if they had it their way, they being always the other guy, they would only pay me. They like I said before, we do it for free. So we need unions to protect us because we'd all do it for free. Then when we're producing things, we go, these fucking unions. I can't. Why does this have to look like Sliders? I visualized it as Kubrickian, Well, because the truth is, you have this and that, and that kind of lighting director. And
but the new technology does allow you to pack into a suitcase what used to take several trucks, and I'm now seeing stuff done. Special effects are literally done on the set on a MacBook Air that used to take 3 or 4 weeks before you'd see the first wireframe concept. So it is those kinds of things really are moving very quickly, and it does allow you, if you have a much less healthy budget to deal with, you can actually do some pretty extraordinary
also,
stuff.
there's a whole new generation. I don't know if this is, I'm getting so old that I feel like I'm shaking a cane or like scratching my head and wondering, I don't know how ridiculous I sound when I say this, but I've seen so many horror movies lately that have been shot in that kind of found footage style that it started with Blair Witch and became Cloverfield, and then but now it's just like if you go on to any of the distributors now, it's like independent horror films, because it's very easy to do that way.
There's now an app on your iPhone.
They're making use of the fact not only that the technology is widely available, but they're making use of the fact that availability of technology has changed the way we think and react to each other, which means and a lot of things start with horror and porn. It's the same way they start in technology with like prisons, and it's because it's high output. Like if you scare people, you can make a lot of money for a lot of very little overhead. So are we going to continue to see this like weird merging of? There's a camera on every telephone pole, and are we gonna
there's a show out of Israel that's coming in the United States called Connected, where it's a reality show, but they've actually taught the cast how to film themselves. They've taught them how to be filmmakers.
Wow. Right.
And they are actually not only filming, but they are interacting with the audience. And actually, there was a marriage between, the story was that the guy ended up breaking up with his wife and marrying one of the audience members, because that's how involved the audience was with the show.
But I think that's what's interesting about technology is, the technology is affecting obviously our production and what we can do with what resources, for sure. But I think the bigger impact, for us is that technology now more than ever is affecting the way we communicate with human beings.
Because it's merged with social networking.
Exactly.
It's the same as text messaging. I sent my girlfriend a photo of this room and said, "This is what I'm doing right now." It's a photograph,
and that affects story more than what you need to make it. Like that'll always change. The technology has been always progressing of how fast you can make things, how fast you can edit it, blah blah blah. But like the fact that telling stories is about relationships, the fact that we have relationships that now we can see each other on an iPhone live to each other, that changes.
Well, and you're telling, every time you do an update, you're telling your story, but you're also interacting, people are interacting their story with the stories that you guys are telling. They're identifying, they're sending clips, they're modifying. I can't tell you how many, when researching how many community movie trailers there are, where they're taking community and putting them into Inception and stuff like that.
You know, the other thing to sort of bring up with all of this is the audience's expectation for the quality of what they're getting, which is going to be, I think, an interesting discussion for a long time as to what happened in this kind of inflection period that we're living in, where YouTube stars and YouTube, content has become so prevalent with such, young. I have a 15-year-old daughter, a 12-year-old son, and both of them. And my son still watches Cartoon Network, and so it's a big part of his.
Probably Adult Swim, not Cartoon.
Yeah, exactly. But my daughter, the TV is literally just a piece of furniture that hangs on the wall that she walks past as she's on her way to her bedroom, so that she can watch on her laptop. And so, for so many years, this quest to make something more and more beautiful and to more and more, sort of create this, lifelike, perfect experience in a visual way, is now an audience is growing up with much less expectation as to the quality of what it is that they're watching. And it's going to be interesting to see what passes.
But not so much. It's interesting because I would agree with you, but I would say it's not. They still need great stories.
No, exactly. The story.
And so the story that never changes.
But the actual delivery of how they consume it, the willingness to watch on something this big, is and to be satisfied by it is that's going to be an interesting. As I said,
because the Terrence Malick movie looks, you can watch it on here and tell your friends I watched Tree of Life. Terrence Malick would not be happy about that. But the person gets through their dinner, with their friends. They saw Tree of Life. They saw it. They experienced it, and it did look good, even on here.
Right. I just want to tell you, mark my words. Dick Van Dyke looks good on the Dick Van Dyke Show. Looks good on any device.
But what's interesting too is that the story's being pushed to them. That's what I didn't understand, because I follow people on Twitter, but I don't have the tweets text me when they're twittering, tweeting, whatever you say.
No problem.
But so many of Justin's fans have when he tweets, it gets pushed to their and alerts them as if it's their own
in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night. So I'll text at 2 a.m, and all these little girls are waking up, and I'm like, oh no, sorry, don't pay attention to me.
By the way, that would be at John M. Chu, at Tim Kring, at Dan Harmon, at Brian Seth Hurst. Please don't
I'm
tweet
actually
at
at Justin Bieber. I'm here to announce.
But what you said is interesting too, is that it's a picture, and we're in that. And what's really crazy right now is I think we are in a post-text age even now. Instagram's taking over so fast that the picture communicates way more.
Have you seen Cinemagram?
Yes, of course.
Cinemagram is amazing.
Yes, it is fun.
I want to shift the direction of the conversation back to story worlding and franchising for a moment. So when you create a story world, the world of Community, if you will, even the wacky world of the Sara Silverman program, and the world of LXD, these are story worlds that lend themselves to participation. Tim, it was you that said to me that the audience wants in. They want to get in, they want to play in the world, they want to create content. John, LXD is now a live show. Your cast is doing commercials. So you guys that originally thought of television or just feature film as your, I don't know what you want to call it, anchor platform, when you think, is there anything that goes into your thinking? Because you hear, I don't use the word transmedia because I don't believe you can sell it. But I do understand the word franchise, and I do understand the word multi-platform, and I do understand the story world concept. Heroes is an amazing story world that is still living in the minds of its fans. How does this affect your creation of content, and by the way, you're holding onto your own rights, for the future?
What?
It's news to me. Listen, I think my brain sort of works in a very different way now after working on a show like Heroes, because I both became, kind of alarmed by the immediacy of the relationship that you can develop with an audience, but very excited by it as well. And the idea of utilizing, I'm much more interested in using audience to actually do things out in the real world. That's partly what I'm sort of looking at the whole experience almost as performance art. How do you get people to go out into the real world and create things and do things and hopefully do something positive with this idea of their interconnectivity. And so to me, that's kind of the next step with the whole thing.
John, with LXD, it continues to live. And actually, LXD was kind of an audience initiative to begin with. You just capitalized on behavior that was existing, which is one of my favorite things to do, by the way. I think the best way to do this economically and efficiently is watch how your audience behaves with the content and then institutionalize that radical behavior, just like Apple did with downloading music. So can you talk about the audience, I almost want to say the grassroots of LXD?
Yeah, I just finished my first film, and I met a bunch of dancers. Wasn't in the dance world that much before, but got to meet all these amazing dancers. And one of our stars, Adam Savani, who's like this 14-year-old kid, got a call from Miley Cyrus at the time. They were actually both 14, 15 years old at the time. It was a couple years ago. And he's like, I want to call her back. She didn't leave her number. How do we get her? So we made a video. We knew she had a YouTube channel. So this is like 2006. We made a dance challenge video, literally a battle video, and said the rules are there are no rules. Got all our dancers together, challenged her to this dance battle. Got a bunch of hits, but 2 days later, she responded with her own dance battle, and she included Channing Tatum, which was kind of a slap in our face because he was in Step Up 1, and we'd just done Step Up 2. So then we got our Rolodex out and got Adam Sandler, Lindsay Lohan, Chris Brown, all the people on Perez and TMZ, and then and Diana Ross, and we made our own challenge video, and we went back and forth, and the audience was just eating this up. All these dancers, and dancers are a lot online, wanted to know more about our dancers. Like they said, well, let's have more Legacy, let's have more Flea Rock. These are the names of the dancers, by the way. Let's have more this guy or that guy. And we were sort of like, well, we have a camera. I'm editing in my living room. Let's just keep making these things, and let's tell backstory of how they got their superpowers. We don't have money for their special effects, so the special effects is their amazing dance power. And then we got a couple of people to help fund just 4 episodes, and from there we've now done 3 seasons, over 30 episodes of it, and it's been a fun ride. And literally the audience just and what's interesting too. Is that YouTube, we made it for YouTube really, for like 2-minute, 3-minute videos. We ended up making our deal at Hulu. So we were like, Hulu was like, you gotta do them at 10, 12 minutes. And we're like, no, nobody watches that long of videos. And they're like, no, trust us. We're like, no, we'll do a 5 minute. So we did 5 minutes. We got killed on Hulu. These Hulu people were totally different than our audience, and they demanded that we do at least 15 minutes. They were getting pissed. So what I realized is there's different cultures of online watchers, and they expect different things, and we felt very alienated in Hulu world, and we spent a couple years there, and we made our things way longer just to help bridge that gap, and it was much better once we did that. So
that's pretty interesting.
And John, you held on to your rights.
And it held on to our rights.
What?
Yes.
So I want to take a break for a second, and can we see John's the commercial for the Microsoft Surface that features the LXD dancers?
Yeah, this is a commercial we did. It just came out the other day, but this has a lot of our dancers in it. But this is a full-on commercial.
Who was the choreographer?
Cool.
Nice.
I want to know how many of those were broken in the making of.
We broke a lot.
Yeah, I was
We
gonna
broke a
say.
And they were so secret about it. We couldn't touch it and play with it, but it was fun to figure all that stuff out. But when we first started LXD, we started with the web series, and then we did stuff like the Oscars, and we did TED Talk and all this stuff.
The International Emmys.
The International Emmys.
By the way, 2 International Emmy Pioneer Prize winners, Tim and John.
What?
In here. I'll fix that, Dan. Don't worry. I'll fix it.
That's all from the internet. We couldn't have done it without. We couldn't have fit in any sort of TV form or movie form, and it's a rare thing that we could do.
Will you direct my webcam?
Sure.
I have so much headroom. I can't. All right, I think I got it. I just didn't want to seem vain adjusting it, but
coverage.
If I had a professional...
Listen, look at mine. All you see is just one shining ball. Okay. So now if we can show Dan's fan tribute video, because I want to talk about the power of the fans when it actually comes to when the network can piss them off.
They have the power to be pissed off.
Sometimes they can bring a show back.
Yeah.
Where are you going? By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you canceled.
Let me explain.
What the hell? Not cool, not cool, not cool, not cool.
Let me answer that question. Another question. She's had enough!
This hoodie were a time hoodie.
We're in big trouble. We have to do something. I don't know what to do. My whole brain is crying.
What is wrong with you people? Guys! Hey, I have an idea. Okay, it may sound a little weird, but trust me.
We need to talk.
These people are giving out free iPhones!
Now they're going to make me cry.
If you get this wrong one more time, I'm segregating the school.
Thank you. But that music was Ludwig Göransson. That's half a community is that touching music.
Thomas and JR, just to bring Dan's spirits back since he said he was going to cry, could you run that Supernatural video again?
Run the what?
Supernatural video again.
Oh, yes. that's really going to make me cry.
The point of that for me is this love. They love the show, yes, but they know that you were the show. You are the show.
Right. They didn't expect me. They didn't like it the way they like Whose Line Is It Anyway? They did, or a Cheerios contest. I think that's an important note to come around to in terms of interactivity. Like, audiences I might go to a conference like this. Not everybody sitting out there is going, "Ooh, why can't I be up there talking right now?" People can go into a different mode, like you found out on Hulu. They're chopping carrots and watching and they got their laptop open, so it's not the 2-minute time limit. Now it's the 11-minute time limit. Yeah. We're catching them at different moments of their lives. And we includes all of us. We are audience members. We're watching them. They're watching us. Oh God, Harmon, bring it into the station. They want to watch the guy spin the plates. They don't want to be in charge of which plates he spins, or he wouldn't be a plate spinner. Mm-hmm. They like the plate spinning acts were born of a time when when everyone in the audience didn't have an iPhone and Instagram and could see themselves watching themselves see things and see what the plate spinner did in his dressing room. However, the bottom line still is, because we have 6,000 years of tradition to suggest this, we like to watch things. Entertainment is still a voyeuristic indulgence. Yeah. We have lots of friends we can all go get entangled with and have to talk and be unexpectedly assailed with the necessity to respond. You know, and your mom calls you on the phone and you're like, so just text me or email me or give me more control, give me a brain arrest. We go home, we watch Dukes of Hazzard, we turn our brains off. The internet is providing an emotional relationship for them. They were able to know through Twitter and through Instagram and through my blog and through Nikki Fink and through Cinemagram and whatever, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, because of my narcissism and the technology and their natural indulgence instincts as an audience, they were able to know something that could have been true about the guy that created Dukes of Hazzard, for all we know, which is that I didn't think it was a crime for them to be watching the show. I was up until 4 in the morning. I was sleeping on my couch in the office. The writers loved that show. The writers loved each other. We had no secrets from them, really. We didn't go into a smoky room and close the doors and say, now that we got these idiots money, now what are we going to do? See? They knew that we were struggling and that we never considered them to be beneath us, that we didn't necessarily consider them above us either, but that we were just doing the best we could to make them happy. Let us know what you think, and we'll take that into our process. The emotional exchange is what's changed. I'm going to stop now because I have trouble stopping.
But I've never noticed that about you. But the idea, Dan, and I noticed it, and I know it with John and LXD, and I've watched it with all three of you. This fundamental shift. You're right. No one cared who created the Dukes of Hazzard. They didn't.
They didn't have to. There was three networks, and
right.
You know.
But now they know. First of all, you're absolutely right. The reason a story world works is because there is someone with a singular point of view that actually defines the world that they are going to come and live in. It's like everybody knew Gene Roddenberry. Everybody knew Gene Roddenberry. They didn't have the chance to communicate with him like they have the chance to communicate with you and edit and be fan talented and show their love. But this fundamental shift where the storyteller is, you're not, no one is looking at well, I'm looking at Hayden Panettiere on Nashville now, but you could have been in love with Hayden Panettiere or Zachary Quinto, but you knew it was Tim Kring. You know it's John Chu. And so now there is this, I love you, Dan, because you created community, you enriched my life, and now they fucked you over. Oh, shit. Now they screwed you over. I've never said that on a panel. Look at what you're doing to me.
I'm sorry.
I'm descended. Well, anyway. So, but there is this thing with the audience, between the audience and you guys, that sort of heralds a new kind of relationship for the storyteller. And Tim, I noticed it with stuff that you created. We did no promotion for Conspiracy for Good, and all those Heroes fans found out about it, and before you knew it, they were all over it. Because it was you.
And you know, listen, I have a very complicated relationship with that whole idea because I like the idea of being the man behind the curtain, and you know, there's you sort of live by that relationship, and you can die by it as well. That you know, it becomes a very complicated one, and I'm still struggling with really just how much of this is about, as you said, the laid-back experience or the wanting to be entertained. And just because you can respond doesn't mean that you should or that anybody wants to hear what you have to say. And so I'm still wondering where that, you know, we're such in the infancy of this whole idea of giving away story or giving away a story world to an audience. It's hard to know where that's going to net out in the.
But do you think that's? And I don't know where we all are. I'm baby boomer. I know you're baby boomer. I think you might be Gen X, and I think you might be millennial. But is it a generational thing as well? Because John is on the edge of the millennial curve and a digital native as opposed to you and I who are digital immigrants?
I think people growing up now especially are much more used to the idea of saying, okay, this is the ABCs of me. I'm the broadcaster of my own magazine every single day and the programmer of my own network, and these are all the things that I'm interested in, and hey world, this is me. That's, you know, when I was in college, the idea of ever wanting to go on to a reality show I think it would have been, if you would have polled the people that I was in college with, it would have been 3% of the people and some staggering figure like 95% of college freshmen say that they would want to be on, you know, The Real World or one, and so it's a completely different, sort of worldview about what your place is and how much viewership you are, or how much connection you actually can sustain.
But 90% of them might have said, if you said, do you want to be on TV? Because TV at that time wouldn't have been Real World.
Right, and it wouldn't have been exposing who you really are.
Right, it would have been an energy. Do you want to be on Three's Company? Right. Yes, I do. I think they would have wanted to walk through and say, hi, Jack Tripper, I'm your neighbor, whatever.
Right, so they still might have wanted to be famous.
Yeah, the weird thing is the elastic demand that we've uncovered, like how much people are willing to put up with, like, oh, so it means being a whore? Fine, still, it's not Three's Company anymore, but I don't care. We have successfully created a society where we go to this box on our living room wall that we go to for all our problems. And now the crazy thing is your 15-year-old daughter, 12-year-old son, or the reverse, walks past it. They go into their room, and but they got this and they got that and they also, like, they do something that I think unites everyone in the room. I don't think there's a single person in the we can look to music because they go in their bedroom and they close the door and they listen to a creator of something that they mythologize their relationship with. Yeah. And I think that what TV is becoming, because it's becoming more and more fragmented, it's becoming more and more like MP3s.
And I think that's also changes the way as a storyteller, well, at least for me, what influenced me was that storyteller is no longer two-dimensional, it's four-dimensional, and that we're each creating our wonderful world of Disney. It's not just saying, okay, see this one thing. I'm thinking like, okay, in 5 years, how do we tell, what's the story we're telling? Come on, all these little adventures that we're gonna go on. And so we're in Adventureland today, and tomorrow we're going to Fantasyland, and then Tomorrowland, and then we're gonna come back, and you're just following that bigger story, which is kind of weird. I never really
that was the community. The community implied. There's a lot of smart people that are so able to make those videos. They have like a savviness that they don't. I'll sound like a petty person if I say like, well, they won't expend that energy on Big Bang Theory. I don't know if they do or not. I never looked, but I do know, without comparing it to anything else, that I know that there's that they never felt punished for obsessing about the show because of the. It's like, if I knew that Justin Bieber was doing little things on Twitter where he was pretending to lose footage, and if I knew that I would have, maybe I'd be the only 39-year-old guy listening to him, like because I like indulging myself and like not being called stupid for consuming. I
try not to feel guilty for what I call this. I call it threading. So you go to one YouTube video that's about Rosemary Clooney that leads you to another that's about blah, 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 blah. It's just a wonderful thing. I want to give the audience a chance to ask questions, but I want to ask John Chu a question that I already know the answer to, but that I want you to think about later after he answers it.
I hope I answer it correctly.
I know you will. John.
There's a case of Red Bull on the line.
John.
I was not.
What is the greatest multi-platform interactive story ever told?
It's Christmas. To me, it's the story that everybody knows the basic idea of it, but everybody gets their opportunity to tell it in their own way, whether it's through a song or through an animated TV special or through a card or through a poem. Everybody owns a piece of Christmas. And I think that, to me, that's when we're telling a story. I mean, I see it in your world, Tim, that you've literally created your own Christmas with heroes that everybody owns a piece of it and gets to create their own thing. And I think that's unlike any other.
And I can tell you that if you're Jewish, Christmas is Chinese food.
Exactly.
Who would like to ask these gentlemen a question? Yes, please tell us your name and what you do.
My name is Luis Colina. I'm an editor-producer. And do you guys worry about branding, dictating content at all with this new era?
Do you worry about branding?
Dictating content.
Dictating the content that you create.
You mean in the new world where if I, as I say, Colgate says, hey, let's start bankrolling.
Norton. Yeah, but that's a part. Amber J. Lawson can tell you about that. But that is a perfect match of brand and content. And the content was created before the branding was done for Norton. Norton's antivirus. Cybergeddon is about cybercrime. So.
Well, what is that? But
like John was talking.
As an analogy to entertainment, what do you mean? Because I'm not familiar with that analogy. But what I want to be able to.
He's talking prostitution, Dan.
Well, I mean, the cat's out of the bag. The job in mainstream media is to pacify the masses for rich people in exchange for the opportunity to become one of them. That is, everyone knows that is what we're doing, and we trifle about it, and we can be ironic about it. Swimming pool, get it? But we're doing it. I'm not out in the street with a blowtorch changing things in a visceral way. I like making people happy, and the people who are in the business of paying people to make people happy are the people who don't want them to go out in the street and flip a cop car over. So my crimes are I'm going to hell no matter what. But I at the same time, I don't know how many cop cars I could flip over to do right. My point being that's a bit of a tangent. I'm on a panel next. It's about flipping cop cars. I don't worry about it because I actually think it's more honest. I think that if Colgate started a website and started saying, hey, funny guy from UCB, hey, hilarious writer that got fired from NBC, we make toothpaste. As long as you don't say toothpaste is bad, we don't care what you do. We just want to be the people that have the banner at the top of the page or the hologram next to the other hologram, whatever it becomes. We want Colgate to be the provider of entertainment because if we don't do it, AIM will. I would go, I don't care. I got no opinion about toothpaste. And sooner or later, maybe there would be a big brouhaha contractually. It'd go like, well, this is only funny if the guy brushes his teeth with poop. And they'd go, no, that's not. We don't want him to. He's got the toothbrush and he's brushing it with poop. It's like you're making fun of toothpaste. Well, I've had it. I'm out of here. And then you go work for Nike. I would be fine in that world. Absolutely, it would be more honest than indirectly working for the Pentagon by way of the military-industrial complex, by way of a company that supposedly only makes light bulbs but also makes cluster bombs.
Oh my God! Dan, as I've said to you before, I'm so glad you get this stuff out because no one should have to die with it inside of them. Next question.
Let me just. I hate to keep
Jim,
giving the answer that I don't know the answer to the question, but I have all had a complicated relationship with brands as anybody who works in because it's sort of it's the sort of like the definition of pornography. You sort of know it when you see it if it's a bad idea. You can't tell sometimes. So when they say, we want you to put this brand, we want you to integrate it into your show. And it's a very fragile thing, like a second too long, or if the light glinted off of the, the hood ornament of the car in a way, then you went from it being sort of a kind of just a nice, easy shot into shilling for the brand. And so it's a very complicated thing. I've done it very well, I think, and then I've also done some integrations that I really regretted that we had to do and that we took seriously. So it's one of those very complicated things.
Mm-hmm. Your name and what you do, please, and speak up.
Okay. My name's Liz. I'm a showrunner and I own a production company. My question is for Dan.
You just own a Russian company?
Yes.
That is very shady. Oh. I thought it was just a Russian company. I thought it was like a cargo container in the parking lot. I was like, poke holes in it. They're dying in there. Sorry.
Go ahead, Liz.
So my question for you, Dan, is, you started tweeting as, throughout production when Community is on the air. That at the time was pretty new, to have a showrunner and somebody in charge of the whole creative of a show, really communicating with the audience. What was that experience like? And then what was the experience like when you were fired and it all fell apart? Were you happy that you had exposed yourself to the audience in that way, or were you like, oh man, now
Before you, did you read his blog post?
Yeah, no, she did. She's a big fan.
Okay.
So,
oh, you didn't see his blog post. Okay, well then I'll let you.
No, well, even though Twitter's new, I'm 39 and I lost my virginity to a girl I met through a computer. I have always been a nerd. I have always.
Did she show up in person?
That's it. Well, not at first. It was a several-step process.
Dan, I booked us into the Catskills. We'll be leaving tomorrow.
I have always been a nerd. I have always only been able to, like touch people through what has essentially looked the same the whole time for the whole 30 years, which is a computer. And Twitter was just the latest incarnation of it. And I've always been, starting in my 20s, I've always been obsessive. I would just blog on MySpace. If you look hard enough for it, you can find me talking about, like all kinds of embarrassing stuff. I made a deal with, whether you call it the devil or God, I made a deal with something at a certain point where I wanted to just be open source as a person because it felt more comfortable to me, the way some people feel more comfortable in a skirt or a pair of pants of both genders. I felt, even though it causes trouble sometimes, friction, even though sometimes if you get beat up at a bar, you walk away wondering, is that because I was wearing a skirt?
Was it?
When I got fired, did I go, if I wasn't a big giant loudmouth of course, everything would have been different. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. And it also, is that why Community ran 3 seasons? Instead of 2, instead of 1, like the relationship with the fans. Who knows? That's why it's very important to follow your bliss. Like I run into showrunners who go like, should I tweet? And it's like, you don't look to me for any kind of behavioral role modeling, except for one thing. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you comfortable. Because the beautiful thing about capitalism is the same thing that makes it so oppressive sometimes is you can put it on a leash pretty quickly.
Right. And they will cancel you anyway.
If Nokia doesn't play ball with their product placement agreement, then Amped Mobile will. Right. That's a bad example. They went out of business. Subway did our show. We talked about that earlier. Subway got a reputation for, they're the people that saved Chuck. Now they're coming in to save Community. And everyone was going to eat Subway sandwiches to support the show, and we Subway and Community made an agreement where it's like, look, you can't have a guy on the set like framing the shots so it looks like a commercial that's going to throw people off. But they got a great piece of integrated marketing in their season of Community.
I think, Liz, if I can distill Dan down into a sentence, he's saying the cost of being inauthentic is too high.
Yeah, so sure, whatever. Yeah, follow your bliss. No, I didn't mean whatever, like go fuck yourself. I meant like, Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. You know, that's that. You do what you you do what feels right for you, and if you're passionate enough about it that you do it for no money and you do it on a desert island for an audience of coconuts. Then, if it turns out that you know, if you end up on a desert island surrounded by coconuts, then you have no regrets because you were honest with yourself. You said, I did say that I'd do this. And
it actually does make for great television, Dan. Next question, please. Yes.
Hi, this is to the...
Your name, please? Scarlett Perez. Hello, Scarlett.
I'm an editor. I work in promos, and I'm looking to transition into working in television. I wrote a pilot, and I wanted to know how open are you guys or most showrunners or production companies, how open are they to hearing ideas from news writers that want to jump in?
There's one in every crowd.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, after you signed the release...
I'm kidding. I was just making a joke.
You know, it's really interesting because I don't know that they have the answer to the question because they all started at the same place you did. And they all work their way up. The world is, these days you can't show anything without signing a release. There's a very famous story about the guys that did King of the Hill who wrote a pilot called Common Grounds, which they never got to do because it became Friends. They licked their wounds and they went on to create King of the Hill. So,
the tough part for writers who become producers in TV is that we all, I mean, unless we're very lucky hacks, like we owe our where we are to someone reading our stuff, even though they weren't incentivized to do so. So my bottom line is like, yeah, give it to me, I'll read it, or tell it to me, I'll hear it. But you have to accept the fact that like I'm going to be one little nit in this giant net that you have to cast. Meaning, like, it's, to put it in old school terms, give me your script, I'll take it. It's going to be in my back seat for 6 months. The McDonald's is going to get poured on it. That's not even applicable anymore because now you just email me your script and it'll go into the thing. But you do that with 50 people and then someone will somehow it happens. But you can. I always feel like I owe a karmic debt. When I was coming up, somebody read my script, or I wouldn't be sitting here talking into this microphone.
Yeah, I listen. I feel the same way. We unfortunately live in a litigious kind of world, and you're always dissuaded to do that kind of thing from your studio, or if you have a deal and that sort of. But I still try to find that time to do that for. It's very hard for it to be somebody completely unsolicited. It's usually vetted through somebody that I know, or some way it's come to me via, friends or agent or something like that. Otherwise, if you don't have any vetting system, then you can really be overwhelmed by material.
So I'm going to take a different tack, and I'm going to go to the John Chu side of things, which is you're already an editor, so you know what the hell you're doing. You're a storyteller. I'm sure you know a filmmaker. I'm sure you can do, I go to some examples like Hayden Black, who started shooting Goodnight Burbank by himself. There are a million ways to make this happen. You are in the greatest era of content creation ever. And here you're asking how to play in an old line system, which Tim Kring would tell you he can't wait till it crumbles. Is that right? Well, maybe not. But you're asking
still have to pay the bills.
Yeah, you're asking to get into the old line system, and still the greatest mass media is television, and I agree. But there are a million ways to enter it now, and you already know how to tell a story. So I'd say, wing, prayer, passion, go for it. Next question, please. Yes.
My name's Colin. I'm just an intern at a marketing company. We've seen some of the benefits, especially with community, of
awesomeness?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that we've been developing for a while.
Opening up all the materials from the content to fans.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just talk about some more of the benefits of that?
I mean, again, that's for better or for worse. Like Liz asked, the moment you get fired, do you look back and go, oh, I was naked the whole time? It's like, Yeah, I don't know if it helps or doesn't help. I just know that I like it. And I think it's narcissism that motivates it. When the writers would break a story on the board, you know, I had a story model that I like to use. I'm obsessive about story structure and the work that we put into this stuff. And I don't feel like a magician where if you know how I did something, I'm going to be out of work. I think that's an even bigger form of narcissism because that's arrogance. That's like cockiness. I'm like, look, if you're following me on Twitter, it's because I made Community. And you could follow Community on Twitter and just get updates on when they're airing a special. You're following me because you're so into Community, you're wondering how it's made, and then you and I have a perfect relationship because I'm just as fascinated with myself and what I do all day. So now we have Instagram and we have photos. So I go, hey, look at this, look what we did today. Look what we spent 8 hours on, and take a picture of the whiteboard in the writer's room, and people like it, or I don't even know if they like it. I think maybe 20 of them like it, and a million of them hate it. I'm just thinking to myself, if I were into it, X-Files, and this was happening, if Chris Carter was doing this, I would be so excited, and that's why I'm basing it.
I have a more practical sort of reason for doing it, and that is that when you're trying to create a kind of a platform around your show of content that can entertain the audience and keep them excited and get them to watch or to communicate with one another and commune with one another in between the episodes, you need a tremendous amount of content, and the faster, the longer that relationship goes on, the faster that they actually do consume that content. And so you end up being kind of overwhelmed with the amount of content that you have to actually produce for them. So anything that you can do to allow them to be the generators of their own content, and it's a sort of a one-to-many proposition. There will be maybe one person will generate stuff and many will watch it. So you're utilizing that audience to be to start entertaining themselves, which alleviates some of the stress on the producers of the show to keep grinding this or keep pushing content out. We were doing it on Heroes in a much more, it was less about social media at the time and much more about producing content. And so by giving people stuff that they could mash up or create their own content and encouraging fan fiction by dropping little breadcrumbs for them, it really was a way for us to keep that audience stoked with content.
Can you switch back to my laptop? I want to end with a video that Tim threw to my way that'll give you some fodder for thinking. This is Marshall McLuhan.
I follow him on Cinegram.
Oh,
I think it's Cinnabon, isn't it?
I don't know why this isn't running. There we go.
It's running very slow.
Wow. Well, I've got a second copy of it. One sec. Okay, hold on. All is not lost.
What's that red folder?
It's my...
What does NSFW mean?
This is a shame. Well, you can look on the internet where Marshall McLuhan is talking about retribalization. It's quite the prophetic video from the 60s.
Oh, man.
I'll just give it one more shot, and then we'll see.
Yes, we're retribalizing. Involuntarily, we're getting rid of individualism. We're in the process of making a tribe. For just as books and their private point of view are being replaced by the new medium, so the concepts which underlie our actions, our social life, are changing. We are no longer so concerned with self-definition, with finding our own individual way. We're more concerned with what the group knows, of feeling as it does, of acting with it, not apart from it.
And with that, I'd like to thank John Chu, Tim Kring, and Dan Harmon, and you.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thank you.